All right, Natasa. Well, it's 1 minute after 2 Eastern Standard Time here in Washington, D.C. I think we're ready to get started. Let me say a word or two of introduction, and then I'm going to turn it over to you.
Wonderful, thank you.
All right, folks, we're so pleased to invite Natasa Hogue to give us a webinar today on remote library operations. She is from the Library and Information Resources Network, also known as LIRN. I know that many DEAC institutions use LIRN to provide their library resources. LIRN and Natasa were going to attend our April annual conference, and as you all know, that didn't work out, but we have been offering content and sessions from our annual conference program in a webinar series. I'm so pleased to have Natasa with us today. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her. Natasa, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Matthews. Hello all, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Natasa Hogue, and I'm the Director of Library Services and Marketing with LIRN. And LIRN, L-I-R-N, as Dr. Matthews said, stands for Library and Information Resources Network. We are a nonprofit library consortium that provides master degree librarians, technology, and electronic resources and tools for higher educational institutions. So let's get started. In this training, we'll talk remote library operations and leveraging Kanban best practices and theories for change management and optimization. So my question is, how has your organizations and employees been doing migrating over to a remote work environment if you haven't already? My expectation is through a lot of training and support. I'm going to discuss creating or streamlining your remote library operations through some best practices. And these practices include using Kanban principles for change management, discussing streamlining operations to handle multifaceted areas in remote environments, and tips and tricks on how students, faculty, and staff can be successful transitioning to a remote environment if it's their first time, or even if it has just increased or changed from what it is over time. So if you have any questions, please use the questions option or the chat on your Zoom console, and Leah and I will address them as soon as possible. Okay, so you may be wondering what the Japanese term Kanban means, and more importantly, how it can help you manage your work. So for me, I use Kanban principles and philosophies at LIRN. And for me, it's a very natural way of making change and optimizing organizational goals. Kanban is a workflow management method designed to help you visualize your work, maximize efficiency, and be agile. From Japanese, Kanban is literally translated into billboard or signboard. Originating from manufacturing, it has later became a territory claimed by agile software development companies. However, as you can see here, it's starting to get recognized by businesses and units across various areas like us. So Kanban is a complete system of managing work. It originated as part of the Toyota production system. Taiichi Ohno was the industrial engineer at Toyota Production who created their pull system, which optimized flow, and used visual signaling cards called Kanban. Now, I'm not going to say we need a pull system or a ticketing system in place to be the solution for library operational change, but we want to improve value and optimize. The Toyota production system focused on this, as well as eliminating waste. In this case, waste was production parts. We're not talking about production parts. We're talking about really is optimization. And you'll continue to hear the term optimization throughout this entire presentation. And also this will be focusing on lean. So the term lean was also created, which is more focused on that elimination of quote unquote waste. They are both agile methods. So when I talk about Kanban, I'm also touching base on lean, L-E-A-N. So overall, we are talking about maximizing efficiency, continuous improvement, and optimizing processes. For us, waste equals wasting time and ensuring staff have a manageable workload and progress at any one time. So we want to streamline and maximize our time as much as possible. The main goal is to create more value for the customer without generating more cost. And in this case, creating more value for our students and faculty. Now, Kanban philosophy and embarking on the transitional journey is the most important step. Kanban focuses on becoming successful, which may lead to being agile. This gentleman here, David J. Anderson, was a pioneer in the field of lean Kanban for knowledge work. So now we're really getting into that whole departmental change into that knowledge piece, that knowledge work, not necessarily in production industry. He formulated the Kanban method as an approach to incremental and evolutionary processes and system change for knowledge work organizations. This focused on getting things done, and the most important principles can be broken down into 4 basic principles and six practices. Now, these 4 principles in which I applied and am still applying to the LIRN Library Department team during our team's transition are: start with what you know, and agree to pursue incremental evolutionary change, respect the current process, roles and responsibilities, and number 4, encourage acts of leadership at every level. And this seems to be working very well as we have made some organizational changes. And focusing on evolutionary or incremental change is a change that takes place over time. It's gradual, and it ensures not only the survival of the organization, but ensures the organization thrives as well. We are using evolutionary change at LIRN and reaping the benefits as we continue to grow by managing a large amount of diverse institutions at the same time. So these principles have helped us build our teams, streamlined our practices and procedures, and optimize, once again, our workflows. But it, of course, didn't happen overnight. It takes time, as we want to do right instead of fast, and we also want to respect principles at the same time, which is very important, are the principles. Okay, so that was a lot of information in a short period of time. Now, I know we've talked a little bit about the history on Kanban, and let's say that you say yes to using these principles and practices of Kanban and Lean to assist with transformation. Now it's our turn to visualize here. Number 1, you are deciding or thinking about becoming a remote operation if you aren't already, okay? Number 2, you have decided to try a little Kanban philosophy. Number 3, you are taking the steps to apply the principles and practices of Kanban and Lean while transforming to a remote operation. Number 4, now the focus is on your remote library operations. Let's think that we're talking about library here. Number 5, the focus is now on library, such as library tech management, staffing, and the services and resources management. Number 6, now you have successfully used Kanban to guide you in optimizing and streamlining your remote library operations. Congratulations, look how improved you are. Wow, that was fun, right? So we went through the process of starting with that idea of becoming a remote organization, saying yes to Kanban and Lean, optimization, optimizing the workflow, and looking at the library piece of things. Okay. Now, although embracing the Kanban philosophy and embarking on the transitional journey is the most important step, every organization needs to be careful while implementing the practical steps. There are 6 core practices as identified by David J. Anderson, and these need to be present for a successful implementation. These 6 steps are what we're going to keep coming back to throughout the entire presentation. Number 1, visualize workflow. Number 2, limit WIP, work in progress. 3, measure and manage flow. 4, make processes and policies explicit. 5, provide feedback loops. 6, improve collaboratively. So as knowledge and usage of Kanban grew, it became apparent that it not only works well in manufacturing or software development, but basically in any repeatable process. When we think repeatable processes, I think recruitment, gathering and submitting IPEDS data, database usage statistics analysis, or anything at all that can be repeatable. And every kind of process could benefit from Kanban to free up staff time. Now, anybody on the call that reports to IPEDS? If so, have you ever completed the survey data for the library portion? As you know, it can be a very manual process. And here at LIRN, one of our active projects is optimizing the gathering of library IPEDS data through some automation techniques to free up staff time in the area and to increase our librarians' productivity. We apply Kanban practices and goals to get this need and to get to the solution. So Kanban means signboard. In the past, we saw a manual pull system of cards, notes, documents that some employees used to go to their next task. Some places still used Post-it notes on the wall or a whiteboard, and staff would come up to the whiteboard or to the wall and pull a task to do that needs to be done, move it over to the doing, and then when they were done, putting it into the done column. This is so simple. It allows the team to visualize the entire project picture and see the team in action, while also allowing the team to pitch in more as needed. From the past to the present, we do have more modern tools, from simple to complex softwares one can use to apply these same concepts. So what we're looking at is the concept and the ideas behind it. But we're just not talking about the signboard or the tool per se. Once again, we're focusing on the complete optimization, which derives from this simple idea. Now, some of the 6 practices and goals of Kanban, which are visualize workflow, limit WIP, which is work in progress, measure and improve flow, provide feedback loops, improve collaboratively, etc. This all can be translated into a platform or software that assists with workflow management. Now, don't worry, we didn't build this. This is what we borrowed from Trello. We've built this internally, though. We're using it, but this is not our software. This is an example of a board being used within our library department at LIRN. You can use boards like platforms like Trello or Visio or any other type. However, a project management tool like a simple spreadsheet or Project Libre, for example, would be proficient as well for organization. Any tool you can use to visualize things helps. However, it does not have to be sophisticated at all. So the signboard idea is simple. Yes, correct. Okay, very simple. So it's not about just the signboard, it's about the idea behind it. It's about the optimization behind it. So we'll now start talking about how do you incorporate this simple idea into a model for change management and transformation for a remote library operation successfully. Okay, and before I continue, are there any questions?
I don't see any questions yet, Natasa. Everyone is welcome to participate in the chat function for this webinar. We also have the question and answer feature available to you. So if you want to just type in a question at the right time, I'll ask Natasa to address your inquiry.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Natasa.
you. Thank you so much. Lots of people have operations that run on a remote team. There are many models and many variations of these models. So here are a few types of staffing solutions we can just generally go over here. I'm not an expert by any means, but what I've done is participate in some of these different staffing models. And also a lot of our members have some of these staffing models in place. So what we're going to cover is centralization, a little bit about decentralization, a hybrid, which is a mix of the two above of centralization and decentralization, shared services, and outsourcing. And LIRN works with various degrees of remoteness, and it works.
I did get a question, Natasha, about Trello and Visio. The question is, are these Microsoft Office products? If they're not, is there a compatible Microsoft Office product?
I believe Visio is Microsoft Office. Trello is just, it's not affiliated. Now, I could be wrong about Visio. That was one example that one of my team members have used in the past. So, but Trello is an open, it's out there on the web. It's on the cloud and you can use it at any time. And there's a free account as well. And the free account actually does wonderful things. You can have a certain amount of boards that you can create, and so you can use the free service up into a certain point before you start wanting to get into too much integration or with other different products. So I hope that helps. Okay, so now we're talking a little bit about the staffing side of remote operations. And now, obviously, we have to develop a staffing strategy when making hiring decisions. And lots of people have run into, that run on a remote team have some type of variation of remoteness. So there are many different models and many variations of these models. And here are a few, and each have their pros and cons. So the centralized model is where staff is at a single location providing local and remote services. The con may be that it's all remote. So the thing is, everything has their the pros and cons. So it can be a con, it can be a pro that it's all remote. A con can be that there's no face-to-face or F2F services, local or local interaction. Some other pros and cons, depending on how you look at it, is some staff may need to have an altered work schedule to accommodate time zones for students taking classes in a different state or country. But then again, to me, and everybody has their own opinion, depending on how an organization is laid out and what types of students they're servicing, that is a pro when you can meet different types of time zones. Pros is that it can be cost efficient as well and run as a shared service, which is discussed on the next slide. The decentralized model is where staff are at multiple locations providing local services. The pros are that the time zone may not be much of an issue since staff are providing local services. And the staffing model puts staffing decisions at the local level, which once again can be a pro or a con depending on how you look at it. Everything has its different side of the coin. The hybrid model is a mix of the centralized and decentralized staffing models. I've personally worked in a hybrid model environment before. We support all these different types of models within our organization with all the different members that we have. And with the hybrid model, staff are at multiple locations, local and remote, providing services. And an example is if you are say you're US-centric and you can fulfill different time zones, thus meeting the needs of remote students and faculty across the US and alleviating some costs by not being fully decentralized. If you are a centralized entity and want to move to a decentralized model, communication is the #1 key in being an effective team. And that's something that we keep coming across over and over again is communication. And that's to provide the best services to faculty and students. So when we're talking about this, we're not just talking about staffing. We're talking about this whole model just based on even more students, faculty, all the different types of entities within the organization. Now, we can also take a look at some remote tips and tricks for working remotely to be successful and productive as well. Now, I also know that there are a lot of emails coming out, a lot of information coming out on best tips and tricks for remoteness and how to be proficient with your time management strategies, different types of tools and things to use. So I'm not going to go into detail about it because I feel that we are being inundated by a lot of that right now. But lastly, if you currently have a remote library operation or do not, using a shared service can be very practical in sharing resources. Sharing cost, employees, and other operations across multiple campuses, across multiple brands or campus branches. Shared services is the delivery of outsourced functions or processes that can be delivered to the corporation from a shared delivery model. So this sharing not only leverages the delivery of services across business units, but also represents a sharing of accountabilities and responsibilities between the shared service organization and its customers. Now, that's a lot, and it can be kind of confusing as well. Shared services can be a mix of centralized, decentralized, hybrid, with a mix of hybrid staffing solutions with or without outsourcing. So I've lost myself, but have I lost anybody yet? Now, all these models can easily feed into one another. If you're looking to change anything in your organization, especially to one that is a remote operation, since this is really relevant to where we are right now due to the pandemic, there are numerous organization transformation models out there, and they outline steps one can take to manage change. So of course, I'm not going to touch base on them all. My goal is to just guide you through when you do make a change, like moving to a remote entity or structure, how leveraging Kanban can help with the process, and then how launching a remote library operation can help you with streamlining and optimization as well. So if you are not already doing these things, here are the things that we should be doing to be successful. These tools and tips can apply to management, students, staff, and faculty. To be successful, we need to be focusing on these types of tools even more and implement them into our day-to-day task. Again, we want to visualize our workflow, measure and manage flow, make processes and policies explicit for our students, faculty, and staff, provide feedback loops for improvement, improve collaboratively, communicate, create systems, spaces, and tools to assist with being successful in a remote environment. And, what did the survey say? I'm just curious, after all this is done, when we have our end of course surveys, our student surveys, our faculty surveys, I'm really curious, as we are changing perhaps our remote environment, as we're changing things, what are the surveys saying? I'm very curious. So now let's go ahead and take a look at how we just do all this in the library world. And we're first going to look at libraries and technology. Whoops, excuse me. Just a second. Looks like a button was pressed. Is everything okay right now? Okay. All right, wonderful. All right, there are a lot of different ways to connect your students and faculty to your library resources that you provide through systems, services, trainings, courses, support materials, and more. When we look at how we are connecting students to library content, there are three major avenues in which this can occur. Number one, you can connect them through single sign-on or SSO. This allows them to bypass an additional username or password and connect through their, just say, Gmail account, for example, and bypass a username and password wall to the library website or portal. So this allows them to remember just their username and password that they would get into, say, their Gmail account at school, their student portal in school, at school, and et cetera. This allows for that one single username and password across the board. Another way is to connect through LTI, or Learning Tools Interoperability. This is an excellent way to connect students as it puts the library resources directly into the LMS modules or the curriculum. And three, there is the general username and password method to connect to the library resources, which students have to remember. That's a con, is because they have to remember an additional username and password, which unfortunately allows for less access to the library, since we have to remember so many username and passwords anyway. Therefore, it would be more convenient to use the internet sometimes and not professional resources the college is actually paying for. So in the last couple of years, LIRN made a technology change. This change allowed for different workflows. In this case, the change was authentication. We had been 100% username and password with all of our members several years ago. And now over 60% of LIRN members are configured to use LTI to connect to their library resources. The workflow allowed for a more streamlined process where students and faculty can access the library more easily. And an example of this is also keeping the stakes low while producing great results. So number one, we visualized what we wanted for the workflow. This is how we came to that solution. Why are we going to implement LTI? Okay, so we visualized what we wanted for the workflow. We wanted to achieve for better authentication support. Number two, we limited WIP, work in progress. We did a very simple LTI implementation. Sorry, number two. Number three, we made this available out to our membership in a phased deployment. Number four, we updated our process and documentation to support the new capabilities. Five, we received very, very positive feedback from members, which is that feedback loop. Number six, we made the LTI implementation more robust and became the only library proxy platform certified as LTI compliant on the market today. Now, this visual gives you a part of a bigger picture of how we connect our students to library content. As you can see here, LIRN does technology, okay? So we think about libraries, we need to think about technology as well. And this is just a very small percentage of what we do as a current library organization. So now this brings me to the question, what is your workflow for getting students and faculty into the library? What's your workflow look like? With LTI, with that workflow, remember that's that seamless integration right into the LMS, right into the curriculum at that point of need. What that does is reduce friction for students. It provides resources at the point of need for both faculty and students and allows for cost savings of curriculum by utilizing, leveraging already purchased systems like your student information system, your learning management system, your library, etc. Already purchased systems. We have to leverage this. There's no reason to keep accruing additional cost and not utilizing them and implementing them or integrating them. So the question for you again, yes.
Well, I wanted to jump in because we've gotten a few questions. This is getting more technical.
It
And,
is.
I've seen a few people raise their hands. If you wouldn't mind using our chat function for your questions. But let me go ahead and relay a few comments. One comment and question is, do you still need SSO or something else for LTI to work? I thought LTI was just sophisticated linking. Can you clarify?
Sure thing. So with LTI, and we might have to talk a little bit to our tech team on this one just to get you clarification, but my understanding is that you do not need SSO in order to, you can have SSO implemented and LTI, but LTI is that sophisticated kind of deep linking that you have within the system, but you can have SSO and created for that single sign-on to get into multiple systems at once. So the LMS, and it's connected to their Gmail account, et cetera. So it is a separate entity, and you don't need one with the other.
Okay, I'm super grateful you can answer that question.
Sure thing.
But there's a few more that have popped up in the chat. So if you don't mind, may I go through these? And then
absolutely, and I will do my very best.
With your presentation. Someone made a comment, not that it happens often, but how do students access LIRN if the LTI option is unavailable? I miss seeing the LIRN option from our library catalog page since things got changed.
Okay, so LTI is, I think there might just be a little confusion there. So basically, when you're in the LMS, we provide a set of instructions for LTI to work. So we have to send it to a technical person to do something on their end, and then they relay it back to us, kind of like a secret code, and then we implement something on our end, and then it magically connects and works. So in terms of the catalog, can I have some clarification on that? Because after you create the LTI component, then once that's configured, it's a configuration, then you can start linking to the library or deep linking into actual ebooks, ebook chapters, videos, directly to specific pieces of content. So it's not just a link right out to the library portal or the library databases generically. What you can do as well through, say, a sidebar of like a global navigation feature, like at the top of the LMS homepage or at the left navigation. But this is so there's different opportunities, but so maybe a little bit more clarity. And I'd be very happy to answer that.
Maybe we'll see a follow-up in the chat.
Okay.
There seems to be quite a few people here familiar with LIRN, so we have some suggestions.
Absolutely.
Somebody commented that they placed their LIRN library link on the left side panel of their Canvas in all courses. They said, further, we do not have SSO, but the LTI worked in their Canvas platform.
That's phenomenal. Wonderful. Thank you for that feedback.
A question, though, to follow up on that comment was, is there authentication? Do they have to authenticate with LTI?
So authentication is no. So, I mean, they have to still have authentication to get into their LMS, but you do not have to re-authenticate, and that's the purpose of LTI.
Okay. One more comment was that LIRN worked with the network representative, the network IT person, to help resolve some things. Wanting to know more about how to create a direct link. And so I don't know if you can elaborate on that. I certainly can't, but I'd love for you to do it. And then just one more comment before I end here, just so you know, somebody sent a note that they're having a clear understanding, and to thank you.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you guys for your questions and your feedback. So yes, we will have to, if you can contact support for the last question, support@lirn.net, because if you need assistance with linking, we can take you through a screen share and actually show you how to link and take you through that a little bit. So if you're having trouble in that arena. So just remember that, support@lirn.net. Okay, thank you guys for your feedback.
Okay. Is there time for one more question?
Absolutely, we have time.
Okay, so this starts with the statement, LIRN is only available through the Canvas courses. It's no longer available via library catalog as a secondary option. So per LTI, can it be accessed through the catalog as well, or is that just through IT?
Okay, so that looks like this is a campus level issue. And so what we'll have to do is have whomever is creating the LTI piece, and where are they placing it? Where are you linking? Are you linking in the modules? I mean, so it's a little bit more in-depth. This is a pretty in-depth question.
Okay.
We would have to kind of do a one-on-one on that one.
And maybe not like a broad webinar.
Yeah, so please let us know. Please contact
Okay.
support@learn.net. Yes, thank you for your questions, though.
Okay.
I appreciate
Please
them.
continue. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you. So basically, once again, we're talking about the workflow. So what is your workflow for getting students and faculty into the library? So we've already actually had some feedback on that. We have some global navigation features. We have some deep linking. So with LTI, we reduce friction for students. It provides resources at the point of need, and it allows for cost savings for curriculum by utilizing and leveraging already purchased systems like we just talked about. So my questions for you are, how are you incorporating the library content directly into the curriculum, not just as an online library link in the LMS, but actual deep linking right into the curriculum, deep linking that video, deep linking that article, that thesauri, whatever it is, right there into the curriculum. Do you have a first year course that introduces the library? Do you have a library course at all in the LMS? Do you have critical thinking courses? What about, have we thought about information literacy? So anything along those lines there. Now, as we are talking about providing content at point of need, I wanted to show you two examples of faculty or instructional designers incorporating the library resources into the LMS. And these examples are from two of our publishers, at Alexander Street and Credo. This example is shown through Canvas. A lot of people seem to be utilizing Canvas nowadays. Of course, we work with all different types of LMSs. And basically, this one shows Alexander Street's video and audio content integrated into the LMS using LTI. It's right there directly into the curriculum. This video is a sample assignment that the students have to watch and have an online class discussion over following a rubric, for example. So that's our visualization here. Watch the video, go ahead and participate in your discussions, please. Have an original post and then reply to your students' post following this certain rubric and criteria. And the second example is an example of modular content. So Credo is an easy tool to use for starting research and learning more on a specific topic, for example. These are just examples, and there are ways to integrate all types of library vendor resources into the LMS. And here you can see this is not necessarily a video, but this is actually something that talks about it's coming from the dictionary. So we're talking about a specific topic here. Now, leveraging your library resources connects students and faculty members straight to the content that you're already paying for. I can't emphasize that enough. It doesn't need to be a silo. We need to integrate it. The silo does nothing. Yes, it's there. It's great for supplemental purposes, but if it's not integrated, we're not really leveraging it. So this allows for more student support and success while managing cost of resources. And this equates to optimization again. And bringing the library content to your students and faculty. Thus, this assists with student and faculty access by allowing them to stay right in the LMS. So overall, we need to ensure that students are not just aware of the library resources and databases, or necessarily the integration of them, but the skills and literacies they need that can come from library research. So learning in their first term or first year makes all the difference in the world. Remote librarians can help meet those needs regardless of student or faculty members' location or the type of courses they take. For example, it doesn't matter if the course is 100% online, if it's hybrid, or if it's another type of blended course delivery model. It's very important for retention purposes to ensure we're in contact with students within their first term and remove as many barriers as possible to set them up for success with the researching and analytical skills that they need to complete their program and to be successful after their program, after their academic journey into the professional phase of their life.
Hey, can I just pop up with a very quick question that just came in?
Absolutely.
How does this integration avoid any copyright violation? For example, the Credo article.
Sure. So we all have license and agreements with the vendors. LIRN is a library consortium. This does not, we're paying for the content. So this is paid for content. We're not, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
Okay.
Great question.
Always,
Great question.
can follow up in our chat today. And then just one more little quick question on this topic is, does LIRN have basic videos to post for students that they can access 24/7?
Basic videos in terms of, so we have purchased content that all of the library resources are available 24/7, and then we have additional videos that LIRN provides that are library orientation videos that we create in-house that are available 24/7. And we actually are in the process of creating more and more. And then we also have vendor created instructional videos as well that are available at any time.
Okay.
Thank you. So as we're going to talk a little bit more about the first year student experience, it becomes even more important in a remote environment. My colleague one time told me a story where he had an assignment in which he had to use research databases to find credible information, and it was his first term. But the thing was, he was really never taught how to get into the online library. It was just assumed. So he reached out to a librarian via a chat feature that was in place and to conduct a search. Now, she assisted him with conducting a search on the topic he was interested in and finding other helpful information. And then the chat ended. But he was still left on how do I get in? How do I access the online library? Because it was assumed that he was already taught, that he already knew how to access the online library. And this is a very simple thing that, and a barrier that happens all the time, to the point when the student comes into our chat, sometimes they're very frustrated. How do I get into the online library? Well, they're there at that point, but they're frustrated. They found their way. Now they need their information. They need assistance. They need to be taken through the search journey, which is another process. But that barrier shouldn't exist. It's a simple, how do I access this? How is that being communicated? So communication is key. So my question's for you. Yes.
Well, someone wants to reinforce what you're saying here.
Yes.
Never, ever assume with students. They are
Exactly.
usually a blank canvas.
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. And this is for all of you DEAC listeners out there today, our accreditation process, for those of you that use a library services, that we expect that students know how to access it and that it's integrated into the degree program curriculum. So, and having a course on accessing the library, gosh, as a graduate student, I would have loved to have had something like that available to me. So, thank you for covering this, Natasa, and thank you for the reinforcement from our attendees today about how important it is not to assume students automatically come to you knowing how to access this.
Oh, you're absolutely, yes, you're welcome, because we see this all the time. We see this every day, and we are right in it. So we want to make sure that this is communicated. And so my questions are, once again, do your faculty and students know how to access the library? Do you even know what steps they are taking to get there? Can you tell yourself right now the steps? What's step one? What's step two? What's step three? How do they access it? I know some people on the webinar have already identified that, which is great, and we appreciate the feedback. So we want to make sure students and faculty are introduced and engaged. Not just, we need them to get there, and then we start teaching them how to be credible, how to vet their research in the online library. We also tell our members to implement low-stake assignments through the student's academic career. This allows them to build throughout their entire academic career their information literacy skills from day one all the way to graduation. They learn credibility in their academics, then they will be seen as a credible source themselves for job placement. Credibility is huge, huge. The first year college students enter with varying levels of information literacy too. So once again, a blank canvas. As you're aware, there are many challenges and barriers our students face already. And this is the last thing that we need, is a login issue. Now, we must teach critical thinking skills to understand the both viewpoints of an idea, of course. So we can go in a little bit more about what critical thinking is. That's another topic. So we don't want to waste our time. Well, it wouldn't be a waste, but it would be another lengthy topic talking about critical thinking skills, credibility, etc. But the thing is that we need to remember that students and faculty have different digital skills as well. we do have digital divides. And I believe I was actually in a session with Dr. Leah Matthews one time too, talking about some of the digital divides, but also accessibility issues. So we have to really talk about and cover all of these things. The videos that we make for LIRN, we have to make sure we're putting captions on it. We have to make sure that the visuals are, okay for accessibility, etc. So, and that's just that's another piece. But
That's
what
a
is the
webinar.
it's another webinar.
But
So
I'm glad you're bringing up the digital accessibility.
yes.
Because that was a major issue a couple of years ago. It has kind of calmed down because we never got federal guidelines on this. But for all of you participating today, keep that digital accessibility in mind, and everything you can do using the WAG guidelines 2.0, try to make your content as accessible for students as possible. And Natasa, why don't you just go ahead and talk a little bit about what LIRN does with its content. Yeah.
Sure. So we do with our content with the accessibility piece is, once again, we do a lot of training. So we talk about the first year student experience, and then we're providing a lot of training and a lot of visuals. So we do a lot of hands-on walking through that stuff. So basically in our videos, we have to make sure we're providing the captions and providing different types of, coloring, background, etc. Just a little bit about that accessibility piece. But for training in general, we have to also talk about our faculty. So training is vital. What are we doing for our faculty? They have to know what the library content has, or what we have. We recommend covering library topics and the faculty in service as a piece. And what's the feedback loop here? Does the library subscription align with the curriculum needs? Are your faculty educated to get the most out of the subscription, for example? So what does that look like, and do your faculty know? So another thing is, go ahead and dip your toe into Kanban. So faculty collaboration, communication is key. Take a look, see if it works for you. Get your faculty involved. And what you can do right now is stay current. Stay current in digital librarianship and technology. Know and understand what it entails today and in the future. Stay current in emerging trends and traditions in online delivery and digital libraries, for example, LTI. And of course, we have to strengthen our relationships. Now, this is something about accreditation. I know we're running really low. We're running out of time here. So quickly is that in Kanban, we measure. So we're measuring, we're managing the workflow. We make processes and policies explicit and provide continuous improvement. So once again, we're coming down to accreditation now. So as I'm kind of going from, the top, and we're going down to the bottom of the foundation of accreditation, readiness, and review, talking about managing those policies and those procedures and staying on top of it, making sure your institution has this knowledge and having your processes and policies in place. And this is just an example of how LIRN supports DEAC library accreditation requirements through a mapping chart here. And this is just on on-hand, ready to go criteria and documentation that's very important to have and to know. Once again, measurement, usage analysis and reporting. So we talk about iPads, we talk about database usage, database lifecycle, usage and cost. And then making sure you're re-evaluating your services that you're purchasing and shopping the aggregators, examining how high quality distance learning solutions fit into your college cost structures. And as you can see here, you have to build the foundation. Okay, library operations consist of not just research support, but student and faculty training. They also need to talk about the information literacy and critical thinking skills and professional development. And librarians make a very important contribution to prepare accreditation materials that support library services and operations to meet certain standards. So we've touched on all the 6 practices on all corners of how Kanban can help with change management. And I won't read them again. We'll have the slides. Overall, we have easier team management through teams being given a value stream framework with actionable ways in which to improve. We have smoother processes for operation, leading to happier customers and teams and higher product quality. We also have closer alignments of goals and ways of thinking, adding up to a higher motivation and better communication. And we have higher success in adopting to change. And that is all for today. Do we have any further questions?
I'm not seeing anything in our chat function, but
Okay.
certainly everybody joining us today can reach out to Natasa anytime. You can always reach me, Leah Matthews, at deac.org. I'm just delighted with the turnout today for this session, and not very often you get to speak with a librarian of Natasa's expertise and background. So it was so great to have you with us today. Thank you for working with me to put this together, and just seeing some notes of thanks coming through on the chat. If there's no further questions, we will be making a recording of this available on our website, and maybe some other locations will work with LIRN about where they want to post this. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, Natasa, and I want to wish everybody good health and safety. Please take
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you again.
Thank you, Natasa.
Bye-bye.
Bye.